Watching Walter Hill's The Driver from 1978 today, it can feel like you've stumbled upon the skeleton key to a lot of beloved auteur crime cinema. The film follows a getaway driver who becomes the obsessive fixation of an overconfident star detective who tries to embroil him in a staged, set-up robbery. The film was clearly an influence on Nick Refn's Drive. The opening chase sequence is referenced almost shot for shot and beat for beat at times, from the bumper cameras to the claustrophobic fixation on the getaway car's interior. The police are even outmaneuvered and evaded by tucking into a similar darkened alley. Ryan O'Neal's no-nonsense, quiet, implosive intensity as the titular character also must have been a reference point for Ryan Gosling.
You were late.
Michael Mann, who'd yet to make his first theatrical feature or his first foray into the crime genre, evidently found inspiration in Hill's rotation of cool, detached professional criminals, and the hothead cop trying to bring them down at any cost against the backdrop of a cool blue cityscape. Mann and Hill are also friends, and an early draft of Heat was initially offered to Hill. Both men were inspired by Jean-Pierre Melville's work like Le Samouraï and Le Cercle Rouge. Too European was actually applied to contemporary reviews of The Driver as a pejorative. The Driver's framing is very artful, precise, and still. The score is minimal, allowing action sequences to play out in silence, highlighting the roar of engines, the wail of sirens, and the echoes of shattered glass and gunfire. The exhilarating ending car chase seems to veer through every action movie setting you can imagine, ending in a warehouse you half expect Denzel to pop out of. It's just so fun to see the vehicular wreckage and crime scene carnage of 70s Hollywood shot like Antonioni or Melville would shoot it. Again, the framing is just insane in this film. I want to draw Madden lines around this shit. Hill has always had a propensity for spare, empty locations, and when they're not spare and empty, that means there's trouble. These characters are loners who equate emptiness and sparseness with security. So Hill's concise, lean approach, slick handling of action set pieces, and unyielding commitment to an austere, minimal aesthetic is perfectly in tune with the detached characters and their lifestyles. It's the moments of empathy or ego that destroy you in their world, something Bruce Dern's detective learns at great cost. Anyone who spends this much time calling everyone else the asshole,
complete asshole. Boy, you are really an asshole, you know that?
Is clearly trying to pretend their own isn't showing. Isabella Gianni also improves your movie by default, even if she is played in a conservative defense position here. Hill has also never been shy about drawing influence from his contemporaries. John Woo, another avid Melville fan, is a good example.
It was directed with such belief in what I think most directors would recoil from in terms of the narrative concerns of the movie, and therefore became transcendent, this really kind of odd plot of Magnificent Obsession meets The Samurai or something like that.
Hill fashioned his own heroic bloodshed film with Last Man Standing in 1996, complete with many of John Woo's recognizable directorial trademarks. Hill also wrote the screenplay for an early attempt at a remake of John Woo's The Killer, a scene from which I actually directed for a film school project when I was 18. Is this rabbit hole deep enough yet? Last Man Standing follows a gunslinger named John Smith, who stumbles into the corrupt ghost town of Jericho on the run from a recent job, and ends up pitting the town's two warring gangs against each other. The plot of Last Man Standing is another riff on the Yojimbo setup. I'd say the storytelling lacks that film's wit and charm, Fistful's quiet, slow-burn suspense, or Django's shock value. Instead, Hill substitutes skillful, loud, visceral akimbo mayhem against the backdrop of an ugly, barely industrializing world driven by hubris and greed. It's a more rugged and bruised Western noir spin on Woo's stories of fading idealism. Hard to imagine there was any in this place to begin with. That fatalistic tone, the sepia cinematography, and the often familiar gangland caricatures that round out the cast can make the film a little one-note at times, even a bit of a slog at others. With the possible exception of William Sanderson and Leslie Mann, who shine in memorable supporting turns, Last Man Standing, like many American John Woo riffs, lacks his human, sensitively drawn characters. But, it's still pretty badass. The grungy score by Roy Cooder really helps carry it. Christopher Walken is slyly played in defense position until he isn't, and the genre cocktail is just so authentically and carefully realized it's hard not to be immersed or won over. My takeaway from most interviews I've seen with Walter Hill is that he's very verbose and humble. I would say that's emblematic of his filmmaking too, how he's moved and grown within the action genre, why he'll always be a key figure in it. He drew thoughtful inspiration from a large repertoire of cross-cultural influences, and quietly and humbly influenced them and his contemporaries right back, engaging with trendsetters and riffing on them. The Driver and Last Man Standing are two of the best examples of this cultural conversation in action, and the two entries in Hill's filmography I've found myself returning to the most. But what are your favorites? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoy my content, liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends will do a lot to help me grow. I appreciate you, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.